Hey guys, Standard VR here with your Week 7 SPL Pokemon Draft League Pick'ems. Before we get into it, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It would be much appreciated. We're trying to get to at least 100 subscribers. Ultimate goal is 1,000, but small steps. So let's get into it. We got some cool matchups this week. We have the Steel Wings versus the Ice Cubes, Seabad versus Amel. We know that Amel has been an absolute just great pick for me. I've always loved this Indeedee Hoopa combo. I do think this Fluttermane and Garchomp is going to give it a lot of problems this week. I think that Okidogi is going to be kind of pivotal. I see like an assault vested Okidogi that can kind of come in and wall that Fluttermane. The Garchomp's going to be a little dicey, but I think Amel can handle it. I am actually on that merit. I am going to give that this week to Seabad and the Steel Wings because I think this Fluttermane, Garchomp, Clefairy, and like the defensive tools in Alolan Muck and Latios even kind of walls a lot of what Amel wants to bring. So I really do think the Steel Wings can pull this one out against Amel. We will have to watch and find out. Next up, we have the Jubilife Piplups versus the Oklahoma City Thunderbolts. Now, this is a very interesting matchup. You have Cloverbell's over with somewhat of a Sun Trick Room core. I know he doesn't really have like a Torkoal to set the Sun, but like Murkrow Sunny Day with the Hisuian Typhlosion, I talk about it every week, is just super powerful, super strong. But the Piplups, they do have Dondozo, they do have Ting Lu. That Zapdos looks so nice in this matchup. I don't know if I'd really bring Shaman, but I'm really excited to see what the Piplups want to do against the Thunderbolts this week. I am going to give this one to the Piplups because I do think that Dondozo, Tatsugiri, things like Screamtail with like its Encore shenanigans, I think it can just kind of wall out what the Thunderbolts want to bring. But we shall see. So next up, we have the Mediterranean Mimikyus versus the Toronto Tyrants. Super strong teams here, super hard to deal with both sides. This Suncore is so nice to get that speed on the Lilligant, to enable that Walking Wake either with speed or extra special attack. Zard obviously just cooks things with like solar power. But the Mimikyus do have Entei, which kind of resists everything except for that Walking Wake. And like that Araquanid, so like Charizard can't come in and just like Heat Wave. And it can obviously slow things down with that Meowstic with like Thunder Waves. Now, I could see the Tyrants, a really cool switch up would be going with like that Porygon Torkoal really focusing down, getting Trick Room up, and then sweeping with Torkoal Malamar, possibly. I mean, Viz does have a Hatterene, but like Torkoal kind of busted. So I'm actually going to give this week to Nexus and the Toronto Tyrants because I think he has a little bit not more versatile team because obviously Viz has a Trick Room core on his team as well. But that Torkoal though, I think that Torkoal is going to be key. So I think the Tyrants and Nexus can win this one out if they can get that Trick Room up, if they can get that Torkoal, that Malamar in. Even, you know what? Maybe this is a week we really see that Bruxish come into play to really stop that Meowstic male. I mean, obviously it can't stop the screens and Psychic Terrain getting set up, but it can stop any T-Wave shenanigans. We shall see. Next up, we have the Shoutcasting Sylveons versus the Immunity Idols. Necra versus Mount. Two powerhouses again. These teams are so cool. The Sylveons with their ability to go set up screens, prankster shenanigans, Sableye, the natural bulk that is Hisuian Gudra, Heatran, Ogerpon Cornerstone with that built-in Focus Sash. It's so nice. That being said, the Idols do have that super strong Rain core in Basculegion, Pelipper, Thundurus, Archaludon. We talk about it every week. It is usually my pick to win is with this Rain core because I know how busted Rain is. Been doing a lot of Rain battles in like Nat decks with like Mega Swampert. Anyways, looking at the matchup, Necra has their work cut out for them. Looking specifically at this Archaludon, there's not a lot that the Sylveons have that naturally breaks the Archaludon, like a body press Goodra, perhaps. You could always just like slow it down with some like prankster stuff from Sableye. Obviously close combat from Palmot can kind of smoke it. I could see the Sylveons really wanting to bring like a Sunny Day Sableye to kind of override that rain, enable the Volcarona, maybe even enable the Heatran, even though bringing those things is really dicey into rain, because if Mount can guarantee the rain, that Volcarona and Heatran, they're in for a very rough time. That being said, that Suicune though, if it can get some Calm Mind boost set up before this Archaludon comes in and starts electro-shotting things, it could get dicey for Mount and the Idols. This week I do want to give it to the Sylveons. Even though the Archaludon's hard to break, even though the Idols have this super fantastic redirection Friend-Guard Mousehold, I think the Sylveons can find a way to break through this Rain Core, and I'd like to see them do it. So that's why this week I am going to give it to the Sylveons, because I think that they have the willpower to figure out how to break this. We shall see. Next up, we have the Baton Rouge Butterfrees and the New York Yveltals. This is a super cool matchup for me. Again, I work very closely with the Butterfrees, and that's a +1. And team building and prep, that's a +1. You know, kind of my default win every week. I can't in good faith vote against them. And we know Joe has become a bit of a rival for me at VGC Regionals. And I say rival very lightly because I am not that much of a challenge to him. I know how good Joe is. I know how good that's a +1 is. This is a super cool matchup, and I think it could be a lot of fun to watch. This Regidrago can just kind of go crazy this matchup with some big dragon energies. I think Joe's really going to have to bring some Fairy Terrors to stop that from happening. But then that's a +1 has that Jirachi. It's going to be close. It's going to be close. Sneasler, as we know, those Dire Claws always just flips matchups. We've seen it happen time and time again. It is an absolutely busted Pokemon, but that's a +1 is the absolute masterclass at using the Hisuian Zoroark, at utilizing the pressure and the mind games that it brings to games. So I'm going to have to give it to that +1, because I think with the prankster shenanigans from Whimsicott, that Regidrago, the Hisuian Zoroark, I don't see a whole lot of inherent like value into Rockion. I'm sure it comes, because obviously like it just does a ton of damage. It's like number 1 or 2 on the kill leaderboard for a reason. And obviously it does, you know, wonders into that Snorlax and that Registeel. And obviously Rock Slide just chunks Gouging Fire. But I really think that that's a +1 is going to have to rely on some of his more niche picks in this matchup. So I'm going to give it to that's a +1, because I think he will have the tech to overcome Joe. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Stunkies versus the Vancouver Vaporeons. I have been a fan of Keely's team since the get-go. This looks like standard VGC, depending on the regulation, obviously, but like that Torn, Lando, Baxcalibur, Arcanine core with that super strong Fire, Water, Grass, Quaquaval, Typhlosion, Serena. It's so exciting. It's so cool to see. Shuckle does have the absolutely busted Urshifu Rapid Strike, Landorus Talonflame though. It's gonna be dicey. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. You know what? I am gonna put my vote on the Vaporeons, because I think this Baxcalibur can put in a ton of work if the Vaporeons can position it in correctly. Obviously, you have to worry about close combat from that Urshifu, but you do have things like a Sylveon, which Shuckle and the Stunkies don't have a whole lot that can really naturally deal with a Sylveon, especially if it's EV trained correctly. So this week it is going to go to the Vaporeons, just because I think if they bring something like that Tornadus, that Excalibur, that Sylveon, I really want to see the Arcanine to be able to intimidate down that Landorus. Even though the Intimidate doesn't stop the Surging Strike's damage, it does slow down that close combat damage. I think the Vaporeons can win this one out, just because they have a very strong, balanced core. Next up, we have the Parasect Germain versus the Harbor Glades Lilligants. Again, really cool teams. Shroom with this super defensive Fire Water Grass core and Incineroar Mungus Primarina. And then you even have, going even further, you have that Steel Fairy Dragon and Hydreigon, Primarina, Duraludon, Iron Valiant. Super cool team. But these Lilligants with the Raging Bolt, the Alolan Ninetales, the Crocodile, the Metagross. It's a hard one. It's a toss-up. But looking at the teams, there's not a lot that Raging Bolt really naturally just deals with its electric typing, which I think does bring more value than its dragon typing, other than defensive tools. There's not a lot that takes super effective damage. Actually, I don't think there's nothing other than the Primarina that takes super effective damage from that Raging Bolt, from that Thunderclap, from the Thunderbolt. Obviously, Draco Meteor just deletes things, but then you're dealing with a -2 special attack, and you gotta switch it out. It becomes a whole ordeal. I am going to give this one to the Lilligants on the premise alone of this Alolan Ninetales being able to set up that Aurora Veil, get behind those screens, and the natural bulk and Volcanion, Crocodile, Metagross. Maybe that Raging Bolt. Obviously Thunderbolt chunks things, and obviously it doesn't take much damage from a lot of things. But I think with screens, I think the Lilligants can win this one out. I would even love to see that Glaceon come out and just start chunking things with its special attacks. So this week we'll go to the Lilligants. Let's see what they bring on Sunday. Next up, we have the Miami Palafins versus the Melbourne Rotoms. Tone versus Cybertron. These are two fantastically balanced teams. This T-Tar Excadrill, this Gardevoir that can go for Imprison Trick Room stuff, this Dusknoir that I'm not too sure what it does, but let me tell you, that Ursaluna can't facade it, so that's something. And obviously the Trick Room core on the Rotoms is absolutely fantastic. So, that being said, I'm going to give this one to the Rotoms, and it's going to be for a reason that I don't know if you'll quite see coming. I think Keldeo looks ridiculous into the Palafins team. This Keldeo starts throwing off some Surfs, some Hydro Pumps. I have seen what a Specs Keldeo, what a Scarf's Keldeo, the damage output that this thing can do. It's absolutely insane. So I think you can get that thing behind some screens. Maybe you start Thunder Waving some things with Grimmsnarl. If the Palafins want to go fast, you bring in that Crest Reset Trick Room. What do you do? So I do think that the Rotoms will win this one with that Trick Room core with Keldeo. I don't know how much value Spectre. Obviously, Spectre is just a damage machine. It could also set really fast Wisps into T-Tar and Excadrill, which could be pivotal. But I really like Keldeo's typing and its offensive pressure into a lot of what Tone and the Palafins have. So that's why I'm going to give this week to the Rotoms. Up next, we have the LA Wakers versus the Brooklyn Bengals. This will be a super fun match to watch from both sides. These are both fantastically entertaining content creators with Joey, PokeMD, and Moxie Boosted. Two really cool, unique teams and unique takes on draft and VGC in general. Again, LA Wakers with that kind of team built around like a mythical core. And then you have Moxie with like that really cool Como King Gambit Iron Bundle Pecharunt. Like, who would have expected that? So let's get into it. What I'm looking at right off the rip, Joey has a very hard time, I feel like, dealing with Pecharunt. Oddly enough, especially with that Pecharunt's ridiculous defense stat. So I think if Moxie and the Bengals can really utilize that Pecharunt in a cool way, I think the Wakers could have a hard time dealing with it, especially if it starts getting off poisons. That being said, the Wakers bring a Covert Cloakmon that can deal with it. I know he used Choice Band Manaphy, which who would have seen that coming? I wouldn't. This is why I would get absolutely smoked in draft leagues. But I do think that Moxie has a lot of the speed control with that Iron Bundle. With that Comfey, can maybe kind of stop Trick Room. I do think that the Wakers are going to have to lean into that Trick Room core really heavily this week, because I think that the Bengals just have a lot of speed on their side. Not inherently, but compared to the Wakers. That King Gambit is also going to get really dicey with some Sucker Punches. So maybe we see this Furret come out. Let's follow me Furret to keep things safe from Sucker Punch. Could be really nice. Or even to like keep from like E-Speed Arcanines. Could be really nice. I do expect a Defiant Annihilate because of that Arcanine. That being said, I know I've talked about this one a lot. I'm excited to watch this one. You guys should definitely check out both sides of this one. You should check out all of the coaches' content because honestly, they are all fantastically entertaining creators. I am going to give this one to Moxie and the Brooklyn Bengals. I think it's a bit of an underdog pick, especially for me and how I prefer to kind of vote on these things. But I think Moxie does have a lot of the control in this matchup because he can get that speed control up. He can get like an Aurora Veil up with Abomasnow. He can intimidate things with Arcanine. He can heal things with Comfey. Like, he's got a lot of tech on his side. Obviously, the Wakers do as well. We've seen Joey utilize that Deoxys speed magnificently all season. But I do think that Moxie and the Bengals exert a little bit more control in this matchup. So I'm going to give it to them this week. But we shall see. So now we have the Golden State Gallades and the Toronto Maple Muse. Two super cool teams. Obviously, the Maple Muse have so much damage potential, so much speed control in Electro Webs and Tailwinds and Dragon Dances. It's ridiculous. They can imprison TR. You could even TR if they wanted to. Obviously, the Gallades have a lot of priority though, which gets real dicey because like speed control does not matter if you have priority. Like if you throw out those Sucker Punches, those E-Speeds, that Ogerpon kind of has a natural, like, it can hold anything. You could go Choice Scarf Ogerpon. That could be really cool. You got the redirection from Magmar. This is an interesting one. Yeah, we'll have to see where this one goes. This one's really going to rely on Terras, I believe, to determine the winner. That being said, I think I'm looking at the Gallades being able to win this one out. I know how busted Xianpao Ogerpon Dragonite is, and I think that with that core, like Xianpao you can train and give it moves to deal with Roaring Moon, Sacred Sword, Icicle Crash, Ice Spinner to get rid of terrain. There's a lot of cool stats Xianpao can run. And I think I'm going to give it to the Gallades just because they do have that Xianpao that can kind of stop a lot of what the Muse want to do to deny priority. And I think the Gallades can get set up in a very nice spot, like maybe even like a Dragon Dance Dragonite that like just starts extreme speeding everything while Magmar redirects anything away. It could get really dicey. This one is a 50-50 toss-up in my mind. But I am going to give this one to the Glades just because they do have the priority and there's a lot of damage coming out. The other thing that the Muse want to be careful of with bringing that in DD is if the Glades make a really nice call and bring that Delphox, that is a very fast extreme speed that is going to start cooking everything. I mean, except for that Chi-Yu and Roaring Moon, obviously. But I'm going to give this week to the Glades. So, that is our week 7 pick'ems. If you have made it through this entire video, please drop a sub, please drop a like, please drop a comment. Let me know what your pick'ems are. Who do you think's winning out this week? Who do you think maybe fumbles the bag a bit? What matches are you most excited to watch? Let me know, and have a great day. Peace.